going to use this image to create an interesting effect which is going to be similar to a piece of wallpaper or a piece of wrapping paper. I've chosen this image because it's got some quite unusual angles and interesting materials used on it. So you can use any image really, but I'm going to use this one just for the demonstration. The first thing we're going to do is open the image up, and then we're going to select the image. I'm going to use a shortcut of Control A. I'm going to use Control C to copy it, and then I'm going to create a new document. In here you need to select international paper, and it's likely that you'll be using A4 or A3. For this one I'm going to select A3. For this as well, I'm just checking the resolution. The resolution is 300 pixels per inch, and the image size as a result is massively high. Now that'll just clog up the server if we use that, so I'm going to knock that down to something like 100, and you can see that that's knocked the image size down quite dramatically. I'll OK that one, and I'll get a blank screen. I can then paste that one in. Now that image that I copied is massive on that screen. Now another shortcut which is useful is Control T. You might just be able to see that we've got a little boundary around the page there. Now I can't see that particularly well, so what I'm going to do here is by clicking on here I get the navigator window, and I can drag this little bar across so that I can zoom right out. Now by holding down Shift I can actually drag that down until I can see it on the page. Shift simply keeps the proportions of the image the same. If I release Shift you can see that I can actually distort the image if I wanted to. So I'm going to hold that back down again and just shrink it down and press OK or Enter on the keyboard. Now using the navigator window I'm just going to zoom back in again, and then I'm going to just minimise that. Using the select arrow I'm going to drag the image down to the bottom of the screen just so it's a bit easier to work with, and I could do with seeing the layers menu. Now sometimes it's actually visible here on the layers here. Now a shortcut again for those who like shortcuts is to press F7 and you get a little layers menu pop out. If I right hand click on here I can click on duplicate layer. It's useful sometimes to make a copy, to rename the layers as they come in. I'm not actually going to for this one because I'm going to flatten all the images shortly anyway. So I'm just going to OK that one, and you can see that it's appeared there. Now there's two ways to move that image across. You can either click on your select arrow and drag it, which works pretty well most of the time, but sometimes people get a bit confused because if they wanted to move this image and I click on there, that's actually working there because the auto select is on. Now if I take that auto select off and try and move one of the other images, although I'm clicking on this one, it's moving the bottom image. The reason for that is because it's not selected correctly in this layers menu. So if I click on there, that will let me select that one, but not that one. It's personal preference, whatever you like. Now you may just notice there's an ever so slight white gap in between the two layers there, so I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard just to move that down so that there's no gap whatsoever. I could do with zooming in to see this a little bit more clearly, so I'm going to use my navigator again, and I'm going to just zoom in a little bit more on the corner and drag that down. Now what I'd like to do here is I'm going to flip this image around so we've got a mirror image of the image in the bottom corner. Now to do that it's dead easy. You just go into image, no you don't, you go into edit, and you go into transform, and you go into flip vertical. So we've got quite a striking sort of image there. Now you might find it easier to leave this navigator window open. It's again personal preference what you're going to do with this. Now what I'm going to do here to make it a bit easier, going back to my layers menu, I'm going to combine both of these layers together. So to do that I go into layer and I'm going to go merge down. That's now one layer. I can duplicate that layer in the same way that we did a moment ago. OK, that's so we've got a second copy. I can drag that one across. That white gap is there again, so I'm just going to use my arrow key to nudge it across. Then I'm going to go edit, transform, and this time we're going to go into flip horizontal. Again I'm going to go layer, merge down, duplicate that one, OK. I can drag that one up again, and I can repeat this process as many times as I want to create this kind of wallpaper effect that I mentioned earlier on. Now that's starting to fill the page, so what I'm going to do here is Control T again, the shortcut I mentioned earlier. I'm holding down Shift and I'm dragging that down. It sometimes goes a bit pixely, don't worry about that. Once you press enter, that'll clear up. That can then be duplicated and repeated as many times as you like.